It's a pleasure to discuss philanthropy, which is a Greek invention in Greece. And the question that Mrs. Gavra asked us was about philanthropy's role in addressing global challenges for a just and equitable world. That's a big challenge. And you've heard from what Jimmy's saying about the scale of the challenge. Philanthropy, just to get it in context, is tiny. And it's so much smaller than business, and it's so much smaller than government. Philanthropic assets, philanthropy foundations and NGOs and impact investment are less than 5% of total global assets. And on top of that, it's addressing the hardest questions, the ones that government and business have failed to deal with. That means it needs to work really hard if it's going to have any chance at all. So I've worked in philanthropy for more than 20 years as a donor, as an NGO leader, as a lawyer working with philanthropists. I headed up philanthropy advisory for JP Morgan until setting up a social enterprise last year, which is helping more people be good at their philanthropy. And over the years, I've pulled out some, I think, of the characteristics of what I think makes good philanthropy, that philanthropy that can nudge the world in a better direction, if not address all the global challenges. And I think those are that philanthropy where it works, because philanthropy is essentially unaccountable. You know, nobody can tell you what to do as a philanthropist. You're not answerable to voters, and you're not answerable to shareholders, and that means you can be agile, and I think that is really important. I think philanthropy that is good also builds coalitions, and I think it listens. So I'll come back to those. Where it doesn't work, philanthropy lives up to its traditional reputation, I think, of being stuffy, unpredictable in its decision-making, and demanding metrics that don't help anybody. I have lots of first-hand experience of this. When in 2005, I was running a small charity, and a large bank foundation gave us 100,000 euros. This was amazing. It was a large gift for us. They demanded a checklist of metrics that we had to report on that they never looked at. I know they never looked at them. They never came back to us. They never asked us any more questions. We sent them in and they put them in a file. And they asked us to run a volunteer program that would help their graduates, and not like yours, Jimmy, a volunteer program that really benefited them a lot. It didn't benefit us at all. We had to hire somebody to run the volunteer program and report back to them on their metrics. And I think the cost of that 100,000 euro gift was about 65,000 euros. So we were 35,000 up, which was a good deal for us. But really, you know, that was not the best philanthropy. So philanthropy that does work, because it's not accountable, philanthropy can move fast. And I think where there is a crisis, it should. So when there is a need in the UK, as I'm sure you've heard, there was a horrendous fire recently, and 80 people died and many more lost their homes. A philanthropist I know, a foundation that lived by that tower, turned up, and you go to see what you can do to help. And of course everybody wants to help, but it's very difficult to do that. What they actually did was they sat down with the tiny organizations, the little church groups, and the ladies who wanted to do things and could help, and helped them to write applications for funding. So rather than giving money, they enabled a better response. We've been involved in the refugee situation over the years in Europe. And recently we've been working on it in the UK through one of the foundations that we work with. And we gave a grant a couple of months ago that was a small grant, and it paid salaries for 3 months for a team that were working on what's called community resettlement. So if a group of people in a neighbourhood say, actually, we will take this family in and we'll look after them and we'll help them get places at school and we'll help them navigate what it means to be in this new country. Now they've got their status. So we gave them a small grant just so that they could pay salaries while they worked on the larger government grant program. And I think that's an example of where philanthropy and government can intersect. So our little grant has enabled that organisation to keep going through the process of getting government funding, and now they have £1 million, which will enable them to really make a difference. And we feel like we had a little part in that. Philanthropy that works builds coalitions, and I've seen that over and over again. You can't do this stuff on your own because it's difficult. You need to bring people together. And some of the work that I've done with Angeliki around thinking about plastic in the sea and on the coastline around the Greek islands, these are difficult issues. What do? Do you pick up? Are you working as a volunteer? Are you working on prevention? Are you working in advocacy? Actually, it needs all of those things. So bringing people together and providing a platform so that they can then go and do their thing better and can know each other and work together is a great place for philanthropy. The Concordia Summit that you've worked on has been an amazing example of that. And I think the last thing that, the last characteristic of philanthropy that I would pull out is that it listens really hard. So I think philanthropy that is up here and is powerful gets very little done. Philanthropy that is out listening to its customers, to its end users, and understanding what they're saying and changing course and focusing on the end goal, that's where you really see things happen. And to kind of sum it all up, I think Desmond Tutu said something once that I think was very wise, and it picks up on something that Professor Karapastolis said earlier. All we can do is the little bit of good where we are, and it's those little pieces of good together that will overwhelm the world.